Welcome to the show. We got a great show today. We're going to be making a Kiridashi style marking knife using 3/8 inch rebar. This is a fairly simple project, and I think a pretty good project for a beginner, especially if you take it slow and be a little bit careful about the forging process. It's pretty easy to get a very nice, clean result. Obviously, this is a very simple design. It's more or less rectangular, and the whole process will actually be pretty straightforward. I don't plan on doing a lot of voiceover for this one. I think the steps will pretty much speak for themselves. But if I see a need somewhere to jump in with a little bit of narration, I probably will. Otherwise, you can just follow along, do this project yourself, or just enjoy the video. As I mentioned, I'm starting with a piece of 3/8 inch rebar. It's much longer than what I need. I'll be cutting it down later. If all you have is a shorter piece, you can just use tongs or vice grips or something to hold on to the end of it. When it comes to flattening this out, again, the process is pretty straightforward. I'm just working evenly up and down on both sides. Right out toward the end where the bevel and blade are, I will be hammering down the ribs of the rebar so that there's just a nice rectangular cross section. But I will try to preserve that feature on the rest of the handle because I think it adds character and tells a little bit about the story of, how this knife was made and where it came from. If you do decide to use rebar for this project like I'm doing, I would recommend doing a test just to see if you can harden it, because some rebar does not really have enough carbon content to really harden and hold an edge. I know from experience that this particular 3/8 inch stock will harden reasonably well in a water quench. For tempering, I'll put it in the stove at 400 degrees for about an hour. And while we wait, we might as well roast some marshmallows. One of the nice things about using a charcoal forge, at least an open design like this, is that it's basically just a very hot grill. So if you have some time to kill,
Roast the marshmallows at the forge.
So after a quick picnic, I pulled the knife out of the toaster oven and quickly just inspected for any obvious cracks or anything that I might have missed before. And then it's time to put the bevel in and sharpen it up. There'd be a lot of different ways to do this. As you can see, I used a metal file and a little belt grinder. There isn't really a wrong way to do a bevel as long as you find a way to do it evenly. And be sure to give yourself the angle that you want for the tool or the knife that you're making. And in this case, of course, I'm doing a chisel grind because a Kiridashi, being a marking knife, is supposed to be essentially totally flat on one side. Now it's time to do the last bit of cleanup and put the finishing touches on the knife. I really like the look of rebar that's been cleaned up with a wire brush, but not necessarily polished. I think it has a lot of character to it. Now at this point, really this is a functional Kiridashi style knife. And as you can see, I'm drilling a hole here. You could use that for a lanyard. You could make a sheath for this. There are a number of different techniques for doing that. I've seen wooden sheaths, I've seen leather. Obviously you could use Kydex. But that's really beyond the scope of this video. But what I will be doing is putting a simple wrap on the handle. Of course, there are many different kinds of material that could be used for the wrap. You could use paracord, you could use leather, jute, or some type of rope. This is I believe it's a hemp twine. It's a very thin twine, but it's very durable, and I felt it added kind of a rustic look to the finished blade. As I mentioned, you could make a sheath for this. wouldn't be a bad idea if it was something you were planning to use regularly. Of course, it doesn't have a very large blade, but from my experience working with the Kiridashi style of blade, it's very easy to get a pretty nasty cut or poke if you don't have some type of guard on there to protect you. I may do a follow-up video where I make a sheath for this. This piece is more of a showpiece than one that I'm going to use regularly, so for now I'm satisfied with it. If I do decide to make a sheath for it, I may do that as a follow-up project. So I really appreciate you watching. I hope you got something out of this. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel. And aside from that, I'll just say have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next video.